Now, Hedera Hashgraph isn't a shiny new project that gets all of the hype anymore, but I bet very few of us actually understand the project and the technicalities behind it. So today I wanted to take a look into HBAR and run through what exactly makes this such an interesting project, and discuss this in terms even the simplest of people like me can understand, and if it has the possibility to outperform a lot of other projects in the bull run. So Hedera Hashgraph was created by Leemon Baird, who was a computer scientist, and Mans Harmon, who was a technology executive. And together, Baird and Harmon formed a company called Swirls in 2015. So then Swirls created Hedera, which was renamed Hedera Hashgraph, to develop and govern a live network using its technology. So Hedera is a company that owns the project Hedera Hashgraph, and the Hashgraph part of this comes from the top of the consensus mechanism and the data structure that runs the protocol. So something that is really interesting is that Hedera actually created the Hashgraph algorithm and owns the IP on the design, and they have started to recently allow this to be used in other protocols as well. So Hedera is a DLT, or a distributed ledger technology, and we went over this in yesterday's video, so I won't kind of repeat myself, but they're part of the same family as blockchains, but it does run a little bit differently. So what exactly is a hash graph? What majorly helps me understand this is picture diagrams, because like I said, I'm quite simplistic in understanding the kind of technical side of things. So if we compare a regular blockchain graph to the hash graph, we can see the differences on this very clearly. So the standard blockchain, it moves in a linear manner and kind of has the occasional blocks coming off to the left or the right. Whereas the hash graph, to a beginner, it looks very random and very complicated, and like it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But you shouldn't let this put you off. It is, of course, still a DLT. It still ensures there is a consensus on the correct order of transactions with timestamps. So the first difference is the use of a protocol that is called Gossip. So this was actually the first time that I've heard of the Gossip protocol, so it did take me a little bit of time to understand it, but I think I've got it. Let me know if I'm wrong. So the Gossip protocol is literally what it sounds like. It's maybe the females that are watching this might understand it a little bit more, but it's like the one mean girl who's always gossiping with everybody and telling everybody all of your business. So in Hashgraph, when sending information between nodes, say Alice, for example, will tell Bob all of the information that she knows. Now, every time Alice tells another member the gossip, it then doubles every single time. So then Alice and Bob both send a message out to another two nodes, and then they send this out, and you get the point to it. It's just as it sounds. Gossip gets around all of the nodes on this. So the synchronization of information between any two nodes is called a gossip sync. So to make this like super clear, if there were, for example, 1 million nodes in the network, it would only take 20 instances for every single node in the network to receive the message, because it doubles every single time. Now, if there are 2 or 3 messages that need to be getting gossiped about, they can all be done simultaneously until everybody has received all of the messages being spread by the gossip. So this is how the Hashgraph send out messages across the entire protocol, simply by gossiping. And who knew that there was actual benefits to gossiping, and it wasn't just for the mean girls. But one of the important things is, how do we reach consensus and spread the data in a way that can prevent double spreading? Because all we have really is random fast messaging. There's no structure to anything, and the basic solution to this is timestamps. So to be able to implement this with Gossip, the first thing that we have to do is implement a time to each and every transaction and message that is sent. So upon completion of a Gossip sync, each participating member commemorates a Gossip sync with an event, and then the event is then stored in memory as a data structure composed of a timestamp, an array of 0 or more transactions, 2 parent hashes, and a cryptographic signature. And there is also this thing that is called gossip about the gossip. So to make this super simple for us, this is when we technically complete an event, we timestamp it, we sign it, and we send the hash to a random network participant, thereby this is classed as gossiping about the gossip. Now, the real reason for these extra hashes, well, it's because technically this is what forms the graph of hashes through the hash graph, allowing for a perfect trail of exactly what happens in the network at exactly what time for everybody. Now, this entire method of using gossip timestamps and 2 extra hashes is so effective that it's actually asynchronous bizating tolerant, which is literally the strongest level of BFT that you can achieve. So this means that the hash graph is immune to DDoS attacks, firewalls, and others. So even if they were attacking, for example, up to a third of the network, occurring all at the same time, it's impossible to take it down because you cannot stop the rapid and random multiplication of the gossip. So one of the really important things to consider is, how do we reach a consensus on it? So there is no formal protocol that dictates that we actually come to any agreement on the state And what we need is a protocol that can verify this all takes place correctly, run the algorithm, and it confirms everything. So this is where virtual voting comes into it. The Hashgraph algorithm doesn't require any votes to be sent across the network to calculate the votes of each member. So it runs by basically members calculate every other member's vote by internally looking at each of their copies of the Hashgraph and applying the virtual voting algorithm. So this in turn is saving bandwidth, and it ensures that members always calculate their votes according to the rules. So this should, in effect, all function correctly as long as 2/3 or more of the network are acting correctly. And just like you find with any other consensus protocol, except the difference is Hedera can work and continue to operate with 1/3 of the network that could be acting incorrectly. So that's kind of all of the technical side of it that I have got into. I feel like the more I read into it, the more it did make sense, but I did have to go over the gossip protocol a few times to kind of wrap my mind around it because when I first looked into what the gossip protocol was, I was very confused. But the more that I looked into it, the more that I seen people giving examples of how to explain it and how to understand it, it does become clearer. So as always, we should go over the good and the bad of Hedera Hashgraph for the sake of balance. So the pros of Hedera is that it is very efficient. It is known for its low energy consumption, and the storage required at Hashgraph to maintain the live ledger uses less than 1 GB. So another benefit is obviously the security of it. So Hashgraph has a secure security method installed in it. It uses Byzantine fault tolerance, or BFT, so this prevents the network from any bad actors. And as a result, all of the events are recorded correctly. So what makes it unique, as we kind of discussed, is that even if there is some malicious presence in the system, it wouldn't let the data be tampered, so it increases the reliability of the Hashgraph a lot. And there is of course the speed. So because it uses the gossip method, it increases the speed a lot. So as events start to take place, less information gets spread. The gossip method does not allow a lot of information to be propagated across the network from one place to another. So this keeps the speed of it running correctly. And finally, that we have, of course, the lower costs that are associated with it. So the charges are surprisingly quite low, and they start from under 1 cent for this. So that's always a plus side for it. And now we have the bad parts. So the centralization. There is a governance of 39 enterprises over the network, which effectively is defeating the decentralized concept by giving the control to specific individuals and building a centralized node structure. But in order to balance this, every member of the governing council is term limited, so this prevents too much power from being held by one specific organisation. So another downside you could see is that there is no mining. So the Hashgraph requires no mining at all, and therefore the only option that users are left with is to buy it. But the Hashgraph management do plan to introduce a proof of stake and mining procedures in the market, but as far as I know, this hasn't been implemented as of yet. And there is always the possibility of corruption. Now this one does seem unlikely to me, but anything is possible, so we should always discuss it. So blockchain nodes, they have incentives in forms of rewards preventing the option of cheating, whereas Hashgraph's disadvantage is that it doesn't provide anything like this. Byzantine tolerance requires the agreement of a majority of nodes in order to reach consensus. Mostly voting decisions, they do depend upon the council, but you do have to consider that what if the council of this are corrupt and they want to call a system attack? There isn't any way to prevent this as of yet. So whilst that one may seem a little bit far-fetched, it is always a possibility, and you shouldn't, just because something seems unlikely, you should never dismiss that. So after weighing up the pros and the cons of Hedera Hashgraph, I wouldn't be surprised to see this come in at over $1 in the bull run. So I know that a lot of people disagree. A lot of people think it are going a lot higher. Maybe these are just people that have more experience with bull runs and more experience with price predictions, but I think that $1 is quite a realistic one for this bull run. We do have to remember that this is currently quite an underdeveloped ecosystem, and there's only a few decentralized apps built on it so far. But I do feel that long term, as it continues to develop and expand, we could see a lot of significant growth from it. So if you've stuck around to the end, thank you very much for listening. I felt it was important to kind of go a little bit deeper into HBAR because I know that there's a lot of people for it, I know there's a lot of people against it. So I just wanted to take the time to try and understand exactly how it does work. And I do believe that this is a solid play with great potential for the bull run. So let me know your thoughts on HBAR in the comments below, if it's good, if it's bad, why you think it's bad, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!